James Washington sat in the big courtroom. His heart beat fast. He was only 17 years old. The room was cold and scary. Many people watched him. Some looked at him with mean eyes. Some looked sad. James kept his head down most of the time. The judge wore a black robe. His name was Judge Harold Simmons. He was an older man with gray hair and glasses. He looked serious as he read papers in front of him. The papers were about James and what he had done, or what people said he had done. 2 weeks ago, someone found drugs in James's backpack at school. James said they were not his drugs. He told everyone that he did not know how they got there. But no one believed him. The police came to school and took him away in handcuffs. Everyone saw. It was the most embarrassing day of his life. James lived with his grandmother in this small town. His mother was very important and worked far away in Washington, D.C. She was always busy with her job. James had not seen her in almost 6 months, not even for his birthday last month. His grandmother was too sick to come to court today, so James sat alone. The lawyer the court gave him did not help much. They only met 2 times before today. The lawyer seemed tired and had many other cases. He did not ask James many questions about what happened. In court, he barely spoke up for James. The judge looked at James over his glasses. "Young man, this court has found you guilty of possession with intent to distribute illegal substances. This is a very serious crime." James wanted to speak up. He wanted to say again that the drugs were not his, but his lawyer told him to stay quiet and just nod at whatever the judge said. Because of the amount of drugs found, and because they were on school property, the law says I must give you a certain sentence. The judge continued. His voice was flat, like he had said these same words many times before. James noticed the judge kept looking at him in a strange way, almost like he knew him. But James was sure he had never met this judge before today. "I sentence you to life in prison," Judge Simmons said. The words hit James like a punch. Life in prison. He would be in jail forever. How could this happen? He was supposed to finish high school next year. He wanted to go to college. He had dreams. The room seemed to spin around him. Someone behind him gasped. The lawyer next to him put a hand on his arm, but said nothing to fight against this sentence. "Court is in recess for 15 minutes, Judge Simmons announced suddenly. He stood up quickly and walked through a door behind his big desk. 2 police officers came to take James away. He could barely stand up. His legs felt weak. This could not be real. This had to be a bad dream. But the cold touch of handcuffs on his wrists told him it was real. As they led him toward a small holding room, James saw the judge through a crack in the door to his private office. Judge Simmons was on the phone. He looked upset and was talking fast. James could not hear what he was saying. In the small holding room, James sat on a hard bench. He thought about his grandmother. Who would take care of her now? And his mother. Did she even know he was in trouble? Would anyone tell her what happened to him today? A police officer stood by the door watching him. James put his head in his hands. Tears came to his eyes, but he tried not to cry in front of the officer. His whole life was over before it really began. And the worst part was that he was innocent. The drugs were not his, but no one would ever know the truth now. Judge Harold Simmons closed the door to his office quickly. His hand shook as he picked up the phone. He had recognized James Washington as soon as the boy entered his courtroom 3 days ago. He could never forget those eyes. They were just like his mother's eyes. The judge dialed a number he had not used in many years. He waited as the phone rang. His heart beat fast. What he was about to do could end his career as a judge. But he could not stay quiet. "Office of the Attorney General," a woman's voice answered. "This is Judge Harold Simmons from Clayton County. I need to speak with Attorney General Washington Reynolds immediately. It's urgent," he said. "I'm sorry, sir. The Attorney General is in an important meeting. Can I take a message?" The woman asked. "Tell her it's about her son, James," Judge Simmons said firmly. There was silence on the phone. Then sounds of movement. A minute later, a different voice came on the line. "Harold, is that you?" Patricia Washington Reynolds asked. Her voice was strong but surprised. "Yes, Patricia, it's me," he said. "I have something difficult to tell you." The judge and the attorney general had gone to law school together many years ago. They had been good friends then, but after school, their lives went in different directions. She went to Washington, D.C., and became very successful. He stayed in their hometown and became a local judge. "What's wrong? Is James okay?" she asked. Now her voice had worry in it. "I just sentenced your son to life in prison," Judge Simmons said. There was no easy way to say it. The phone was quiet. For a moment, Judge Simmons thought the call had dropped. "What did you say?" Patricia finally asked, her voice now just a whisper. Judge Simmons explained about the drugs found in James's backpack at school. He told her about the trial and the evidence. He explained how the law required a certain sentence for this crime. "Why didn't anyone call me? Why am I just hearing about this now?" she asked. Her voice got louder with each question. "James lives with your mother. I assume she's been handling everything," the judge said. "I didn't know myself that he was in my court until the trial began. By then, I couldn't step down without raising questions. This can't be happening," Patricia said. "James is a good boy. He doesn't do drugs. He certainly doesn't sell them." The evidence seemed clear, Judge Simmons said. But what?" she asked quickly. "Something feels wrong about this case. The public defender barely put up a fight. And James keeps saying he's innocent." "Harold, I can't interfere directly. You know that. It would be a major conflict of interest," Patricia said. She sounded torn between being the nation's top lawyer and being a mother. "I know, but I can delay things. I called for a recess. I can order a review of the evidence," he offered. "I'm getting on a plane right now," Patricia said. "I can't touch this case officially, but I can make sure the right people look at it." "Do you think someone set him up?" Judge Simmons asked. "I don't know, but I intend to find out," she answered. "How is he? How is James?" The judge thought about the young man in his courtroom. How scared he looked. How alone. "He's strong. Like you," he said. "But he needs help." "Patricia, thank you for calling me, Harold. After all these years, thank you," she said, her voice softer now. "I'll see what I can do on my end. But hurry," he said. As they hung up, Judge Simmons sat at his desk, thinking about what to do next. He had just crossed a line that judges should never cross. But looking at the case file again, he began to see things he had missed before. Questions no one had asked. Evidence that didn't quite make sense. The 15-minute recess was almost over. He had to go back to the courtroom. He had to face James again. But this time, he would look at him not as just another young criminal, but as the son of an old friend who deserved a closer look at his case. Patricia Washington Reynolds put down the phone. Her hands were shaking. She could not believe what she had just heard. Her son James was in serious trouble. The top lawyer in the country stood frozen in her large office. 5 important people sat around her big meeting table. They were waiting for her to continue talking about a big case, but she could not think about work now. Her mind was filled with thoughts of James. "I need to leave right away," she said to the room. "Family emergency." Her assistant Mark looked worried. "But your meeting with the president is in 2 hours." "Cancel it," Patricia said. She was already picking up her bag and coat. "Cancel everything for the next few days." The people in the room looked shocked. Patricia Washington Reynolds never canceled meetings, especially not with the president. "What should I tell them?" Mark asked, following her to the door. "Tell them my son needs me," she said. It was the first time many of them had heard her talk about having a son. In the hallway, Patricia gave quick orders. "I need the fastest way to get to Clayton County. Call ahead for a car to meet me at the airport, and get me everything you can find about a drug case involving James Washington." As she walked quickly through the building, people moved out of her way. They knew something serious must be happening. The Attorney General never rushed. In the car to the airport, Patricia tried to remember when she last talked to James. Was it a month ago? Or longer? She had been so busy with big cases, always thinking she would have time with him later. Now he was in terrible trouble, and she had not been there to help him. She called her mother, but no one answered. The old woman was probably at the hospital again. Her health had been bad lately. That was why James had moved in with her 2 years ago, to help take care of his grandmother. And now this happens. At the airport, a special plane was waiting. Being Attorney General had some good points. Fast travel was one of them. As the plane took off, Patricia looked out the window at Washington, D.C. getting smaller below her. Her mind was racing with questions. Why would James have drugs? He was a smart boy who wanted to go to college. It made no sense. And if he was innocent like he claimed, who would set him up? And why? Her phone rang. It was someone from her office with information. The arresting officer was Thomas Reed. The voice said, "The drugs were found during a random backpack search at the school." Random search? Patricia asked. Is that even legal without cause? The school has a policy that allows it, the person explained. The report says they found 3 small bags of pills in the front pocket of his backpack. Street value about $20,000. Patricia almost dropped her phone. 20,000. That's not small time. No, ma'am. That's why they charged him with intent to distribute, not just possession. What does James say about it? She asked. According to the transcript, he claims he never saw the drugs before. Says someone must have put them in his bag. What evidence did they have besides the drugs themselves? There was a pause. That seems to be it. Just the drugs in his possession. Patricia felt a small bit of hope. No witnesses, no text messages or money. Not in the file, the voice said. Who was his lawyer? Patricia asked. Public defender named William Grant. She wrote down the name. The plane hit some rough air and bounced a bit. Patricia held tight to her seat. I need to talk to this lawyer. And I need to see the evidence myself, she said. Ma'am, you know you can't get involved personally in this case. The voice reminded her gently. I know, Patricia said, but I can make sure the right questions get asked. As the plane flew through dark clouds, Patricia looked at a picture of James on her phone. He was smiling in his school basketball uniform. He looked so young, so innocent. I'm coming, James, she whispered to the picture. Hold on. James sat alone in the small holding room. The walls were plain and gray. There was only one small window high up near the ceiling. He could see a small patch of blue sky through it. He wondered if that would be the last bit of free sky he would see for a long time. The door opened. A tall police officer stood there. The judge wants to see you back in court, he said. James was confused. He thought everything was over. The judge had already given him his sentence. Life in prison. Those words kept playing in his head again and again. The officer put handcuffs on James again and led him back to the courtroom. It seemed different now. More people were there. Some had notebooks and cameras. The news people had arrived. James saw Judge Simmons sitting at his high desk. The judge looked different somehow. Less cold. Maybe even a little nervous. The judge looked at James and their eyes met for a moment. Bring the defendant forward, Judge Simmons said. James was led to the front of the room. He could feel everyone watching him. He wished he could disappear. I have reviewed certain aspects of this case, the judge began, and I have decided that there are questions that need answers before the sentence can be carried out. The lawyer from the government stood up quickly. Your Honor, the case is closed. The jury has decided. The law is clear about the sentence. I am aware of the law, Mr. Phillips, the judge said in a firm voice. But I am also aware that justice must be served correctly. There are procedures that may not have been followed properly in this case. James did not understand what was happening. Was there hope? He looked at his public defender, but the man looked as surprised as James felt. I am ordering a stay of the sentence pending a full review of the evidence, Judge Simmons announced. The defendant will remain in custody, but will not be transferred to state prison at this time. The room filled with noise. People started talking all at once. The news people were writing quickly in their notebooks. "Your Honor, this is most unusual," Mr. Phillips said. He looked angry. "So is sentencing a 17-year-old to life in prison for a first offense," the judge answered. "This court will reconvene in 3 days. I expect a full accounting of the evidence by then." The judge hit his desk with his small wooden hammer. Then he stood up and left the room. James was taken back to the holding room. His mind was spinning. What had just happened? Why did the judge change his mind? Was it possible he might not go to prison for life after all? The door opened again. This time, a different man came in. He wore an expensive suit and carried a leather bag. "Hello, James," the man said. "My name is Robert Chen. I'm a lawyer. A real one." "What do you mean, a real one?" James asked. "I mean I'm not an overworked public defender with 200 cases," Mr. Chen said. "I'm here to help you." "I don't understand," James said. "I can't pay for a lawyer. My grandmother doesn't have money for that." "You don't need to worry about that," Mr. Chen said. He sat down across from James. "Someone is taking care of it." "Who?" James asked. Mr. Chen did not answer that question. Instead, he opened his leather bag and took out some papers. "I need you to tell me everything," the lawyer said. "Start from the beginning. What happened that day at school?" James took a deep breath. He had told his story so many times, but no one had really listened. Maybe this time would be different. "It was a normal day," James began. "I went to my classes, had lunch with my friends. Then, during last period, the principal came to get me. He took me to his office. The police were there. They said they needed to search my bag." "Did they say why?" Mr. Chen asked. "They said they got a tip that I had drugs," James said. "But I didn't. I swear I didn't." "I believe you," Mr. Chen said. He was writing notes. "Then what happened?" "They found those bags in my backpack, but they weren't mine. Someone must have put them there," James said. He had said these same words so many times. "Did you have any idea who might have done that?" Mr. Chen asked. For the first time, someone was asking real questions. James thought hard. "There was this new kid at school," he finally said. "Marcus. He kept trying to get me to hang out with him. But something about him seemed off." Mr. Chen wrote that down too. "We'll find him," he said. "And James, one more thing. Your mother is on her way." Patricia arrived at the Clayton County Courthouse late that night. The building was mostly empty. A few lights were still on in some offices. The security guard at the front desk looked surprised to see someone so well-dressed enter the building at this hour. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The courthouse is closed for the day," he said. Patricia showed him her identification. His eyes went wide. "Attorney General Washington Reynolds," she said. "I believe Judge Simmons is expecting me." "Yes, ma'am," the guard said quickly. "He said you might be coming. 3rd floor, end of the hall." Patricia took the old elevator up. It moved slowly and made squeaking sounds. This small-town courthouse was very different from the big modern buildings she worked in every day. Judge Simmons was waiting in his office. When she walked in, they looked at each other for a long moment. It had been almost 20 years since they had seen each other face to face. "Patricia," he said finally, "you look exactly the same." "So do you, Harold," she lied. He had aged a lot. His hair was all gray now. Deep lines marked his face. The job of being a judge in a small town with big problems had worn him down. "Thank you for calling me," she said. "I had no idea James was in trouble." "I figured as much," Harold said. "Please, sit down." Patricia sat in the chair across from his desk. "Have you seen him? Is he okay?" "He's at the county jail," Harold said. "I arranged for him to have a private cell away from the adult prisoners. He's safe." I need to see him, Patricia said. Of course. But first, we should talk about the case, Harold said. He picked up a thick folder from his desk. I've been reviewing everything. There are problems, Patricia. Big ones. Tell me, she said. Harold opened the folder. The search of his backpack may not have been legal. The school policy says they can do random searches, but this wasn't random. The principal specifically asked to search James's bag based on an anonymous tip. Anonymous tip? Patricia asked. From who? That's just it. No one knows, Harold said. The school got a phone call. No record of who made it. Patricia thought about this. What else? The amount of drugs they found is strange, Harold continued. It's a lot. Way more than a kid would have. And they were hidden in a way that doesn't make sense if James knew they were there. What do you mean? Patricia asked. They were in the front pocket, the most obvious place to look, Harold explained. Anyone who was trying to hide drugs wouldn't put them there, but someone planting them might, especially if they were in a hurry. Patricia felt a mix of emotions. She was angry that this had happened to her son, but she also felt guilty. If she had been more present in James's life, maybe this wouldn't have happened, or at least she would have known about it sooner. I've assigned a new lawyer to his case, Harold said. Robert Chen. He's the best defense attorney in the county. I appreciate that, Patricia said, but I brought my own team. They're waiting outside. Harold looked worried. Patricia, you know you can't be officially involved in this case. The conflict of interest is enormous. I know that, she said firmly, but I can make sure James has the best possible defense, and I can make sure the investigation is thorough. Harold nodded slowly. There's something else you should know. The media is starting to pick up the story. Someone leaked that the U.S. Attorney General's son was sentenced to life in prison in my court. They're asking questions. Patricia had expected this. Let them ask. I have nothing to hide. My son is innocent, and will prove it. The political damage could be serious, Harold warned. For both of us. I don't care about politics right now, Patricia said. This is about my son. She stood up. Now, take me to see James. Harold got up from his desk. As they walked to the door, he said, for what it's worth, I believe he's innocent too. There's something very wrong with this whole case. Patricia stopped and looked at her old friend. Thank you for that. And Harold, no matter what happens, I won't forget that you were the one who called me. They left the office together and headed toward the county jail where James was waiting. James sat on the small bed in his cell. The walls were close around him. The light from the ceiling was too bright. He could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the courtroom and heard the words life in prison. The sound of keys rattling made him look up. The door opened. A guard stood there. You have visitors, the guard said. James was surprised. Visitors. At this late hour, he got up and followed the guard down a long hallway. They went into a small room with a table and chairs. And there she was. Mom, James said. He could not believe his eyes. Patricia Washington Reynolds stood there in her fancy work clothes. Her eyes were red like she had been crying. When she saw James, she ran to him and hugged him tight. James, I'm so sorry, she said. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. James hugged his mother back. It had been so long since he had seen her. Part of him wanted to be angry at her for being away so much. But right now, he was just happy she was here. How did you know? He asked when they finally let go. Judge Simmons called me, she said. James was confused. The judge called you. Why? We knew each other long ago, she explained. He recognized your name. James saw Judge Simmons standing by the door. The judge looked different now, less scary than he had in the courtroom. I'll give you two some time alone, the judge said, and he left the room. James and his mother sat at the table. She held his hands in hers. Tell me everything, she said. I need to hear it from you. James told her about that day at school, How the principal came to get him. How they searched his bag and found the drugs. How no one believed him when he said they weren't his. "I would never do drugs, Mom," he said, "and I definitely wouldn't sell them." "You know that, right?" "Of course I know that," she said. "You're a good person, James. I've always been proud of you." Those words made James feel warm inside. His mom had always been busy with her important job. Sometimes he wondered if she even thought about him. Now he knew she did. "We're going to fight this," she said. "Your new lawyer, Mr. Chen, is very good. And I have people looking into what happened." "Can you do that?" James asked. "I mean, with your job and all." "I can't be officially involved in your case," she admitted, "but I can make sure you have the best help possible." James felt hope for the first time since this all began, but he also felt worry. "What about Grandma?" he asked. "Is she okay?" "She doesn't know I'm here." Patricia looked sad. "She's in the hospital again. That's why she couldn't come to your trial. I've arranged for people to take care of her." James felt tears come to his eyes. "This is all such a mess." "We'll fix it," his mother promised. "Together." A knock on the door interrupted them. The guard came back in. "Time's up," he said. Patricia stood up. "I'll be back tomorrow," she told James. "Try to get some sleep." James didn't want her to go. He had so many questions, so many things to tell her. But he just nodded. "Mom," he said as she reached the door. "Thank you for coming." She looked back at him with love in her eyes. "Wild horses couldn't have kept me away," she said. As the guard led James back to his cell, he felt different. Not happy exactly, but not as scared as before. His mother was here. She believed him. And she was the most powerful lawyer in the country. If anyone could help him, she could. For the first time in days, James slept. The next morning, the small town of Clayton was buzzing with news. Reporters from big TV stations filled the main street. Vans with satellite dishes were parked outside the courthouse. Everyone was talking about the same thing. The U.S. Attorney General was in town because her son had been sentenced to life in prison. In a small office near the courthouse, Robert Chen met with Patricia and a team of lawyers she had brought from Washington. They were going through every piece of evidence in James's case. "The chain of custody for the drugs is questionable," one lawyer said. "The police officer didn't bag them right away. There's a 20-minute gap where they just sat on the principal's desk. And the amount doesn't match," another added. "The police report says 3 bags of pills, but the evidence log only shows 2.5 bags. Robert Chen nodded. "Someone might have taken some. Or maybe the count was wrong from the start." Patricia looked at the pictures of the drugs found in James's backpack. "These aren't street drugs," she said. "These are prescription pills, high-grade pharmaceutical products." "That's unusual for a school drug case," Robert agreed. "Usually it's marijuana or cheaper pills. These are expensive." "Where would they come from?" Patricia asked. One of her team members spoke up. "There have been reports of missing drugs from the hospital near here. We're looking into a possible connection." They worked all morning, finding more and more problems with the case against James. By lunchtime, they had a long list of issues to bring to the judge. Meanwhile, across town at Clayton High School, the principal was having a bad day. News teams wanted to talk to him. Parents were calling with questions. And now the police were back, asking more questions about the day they found drugs in James Washington's backpack. "You said you got an anonymous phone call," the police officer said. "Did you recognize the voice?" "No," the principal answered nervously. "It was a boy, I think. He said James Washington had drugs in his bag." "And you called us right away?" the officer asked. "Yes," the principal said. "School policy." "Did you know who James Washington's mother is?" the officer asked. The principal looked uncomfortable. "Not until yesterday when it was on the news." At the same time, in another part of town, 2 FBI agents were talking to a teenage boy named Marcus Fisher. He was the new kid James had mentioned. "We know you're not from around here, Marcus," one agent said. Your real name is Michael Dawson. You moved here 3 months ago. Why? The boy looked scared. My dad got a job here, he said. Your father is in prison in Ohio, the agent said. Try again. Marcus looked down at his hands. I can't talk to you, he said quietly. They'll kill me. Who will? The agent asked. The people I work for, Marcus whispered. Back at the courthouse, Judge Simmons was in his office reading a report that had just arrived. It showed that Officer Thomas Reed, who arrested James, had made 8 drug arrests at the high school in the past year. All of them were Black or Hispanic students. All of them involved the same type of prescription pills. And all of them came after anonymous tips. The judge picked up his phone and called Robert Chen. I think we've found a pattern, he said. By evening, the pieces were starting to come together. Robert Chen and Patricia's team prepared to present their findings to the judge the next day. They had evidence of a possible setup. They had questions about missing drugs from the hospital. And they had a pattern of similar arrests that suggested something bigger was happening. Patricia went to see James again that night. He looked better than the day before. There was color in his face again. We're making progress, she told him. The hearing tomorrow could change everything. Do you think I'll get out? James asked hopefully. I think the truth is coming out, she said. And the truth is on your side. The courthouse was packed the next morning. People stood along the walls. Reporters filled the back rows. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next in the case that was now making national news. Judge Simmons entered the courtroom. Everyone stood up. Be seated, he said. His voice was strong and clear. This court is now in session. James sat at the defense table with Robert Chen. He wore clean clothes that his mother had brought him. He tried to look brave, but inside he was scared. So much was riding on today. Patricia sat in the first row behind him. She couldn't be at the defense table because of her job, but she wanted to be as close as possible to her son. We are here to review new evidence in the case of State versus Washington, Judge Simmons announced. Mr. Chen, you may proceed. Robert Chen stood up. Your Honor, we have discovered several serious problems with the case against my client. For the next hour, Robert presented their findings. He showed how the search of James's backpack might have been illegal. He pointed out the problems with how the drugs were handled after they were found. He talked about the pattern of similar arrests at the school. But most importantly, Robert said, we have a new witness. The courtroom buzzed with excitement. Judge Simmons had to use his gavel to quiet everyone down. A young man was brought into the courtroom. It was Marcus Fisher. He looked nervous as he took the stand. State your name for the record, Judge Simmons said. Marcus Fisher. But my real name is Michael Dawson, the boy said. Mr. Dawson, do you understand that you are under oath? The judge asked. Yes, sir, Marcus said. His voice was shaking. Robert Chen approached him. Mr. Dawson, can you tell the court why you came to Clayton 3 months ago? I was sent here, Marcus said, by a drug ring that operates out of the city hospital. They use high school students to sell drugs that go missing from the hospital. The courtroom was completely silent now. Everyone was listening closely. And what was your role? Robert asked. I was supposed to find other students to sell the drugs, Marcus explained. I tried to get James to work with me, but he said no. He's on the basketball team. He wants to go to college. He wouldn't get involved. So what did you do when he refused? Robert asked. Marcus looked down. They told me to set him up, to put the drugs in his bag and then call in a tip to the principal. And did you do that? Robert asked. Yes, Marcus admitted. I'm sorry. I was scared. These people are dangerous. Thank you for your courage today, Robert said. Then he turned to the judge. Your Honor, we move that all charges against James Washington be dismissed immediately. The prosecutor stood up. Your Honor, we need time to investigate these claims. You've had time, Robert said. My client has been sitting in jail for a crime he didn't commit. a crime that this witness just admitted to setting him up for. Judge Simmons looked at Marcus. "Young man, do you understand that you have just confessed to a serious crime?" "Yes, sir," Marcus said. "But I couldn't let an innocent person go to prison for what I did." The judge thought for a moment. Then he spoke. "In light of this new testimony and the other evidence presented today, I am dismissing all charges against James Washington." He hit his gavel on the desk. "Mr. Washington, you are free to go." The courtroom erupted in noise. People were talking and some were clapping. James couldn't believe it. He was free. It was over. He turned and hugged Robert Chen. Then he looked at his mother. Tears were running down her face, but she was smiling. She came forward and wrapped her arms around him. "It's over," she whispered in his ear. "Let's go home." But as they started to leave the courtroom, a reporter called out, "Attorney General Washington Reynolds, how do you feel about the special treatment your son received in this case?" Patricia stopped. James could feel her tense up. The happy moment was broken. The question from the reporter hung in the air. Everyone in the courtroom waited to hear what Patricia would say. She turned slowly to face the crowd of reporters. Her face was calm, but her eyes were fierce. "My son did not receive special treatment," she said clearly. "In fact, he was treated unfairly from the start. He was set up. The evidence was mishandled. His public defender was overwhelmed with too many cases, and he was facing life in prison at 17 years old for a crime he did not commit." The reporters were writing quickly in their notebooks. "What makes this case special," Patricia continued, "is not who James's mother is. What makes it special is that the truth came out. But what about all the other young people who don't have a mother in my position? What about those who don't get a second look at their case?" The room was silent now. "The real story here is not about me or my son," she said. "It's about a system that isn't working for too many young people, especially young people of color. That's what you should be writing about." With that, she took James's hand, and they walked out of the courtroom together. Outside, the bright sun felt good on James's face. After days in a cell, just breathing fresh air was amazing. His grandmother was waiting for them in a car. She had left the hospital to be there. The three of them hugged for a long time. "I'm sorry I couldn't be at your trial," his grandmother said. "If I had known." "It's okay, Grandma," James said. It all worked out. Later that day, at his grandmother's house, James watched the news with his mother. The story of his case was on every channel. But they weren't just talking about him. They were talking about the bigger issues his mother had raised. "Did you mean what you said?" James asked her. "About the system not working for people who don't have important parents." "Every word," she said. "What happened to you happens to too many young people. The difference is they don't get a second chance." James thought about that. He had been lucky in a strange way. What had seemed like the worst thing ever had turned into something important. "What happens now?" he asked. "The FBI will continue investigating the drug ring at the hospital," his mother said. "And Officer Reed is being looked at for possible civil rights violations in his arrests." "And Marcus?" James asked. He still couldn't believe the new kid had been the one to set him up. "He'll face charges, but his cooperation will be considered," she explained. "He was being used too, in a different way." Patricia put her arm around her son. "As for us, I'm taking some time off. I want to be here with you and Grandma for a while." James smiled. He had wished for more time with his mom for years. "I'd like that," he said. 2 weeks later, James returned to school. Some kids looked at him differently now. Some whispered when he walked by. But his real friends welcomed him back. His basketball coach told him his spot on the team was still his. Life was slowly getting back to normal. Judge Harold Simmons started a program to review cases of young people sentenced to long prison terms. He wanted to make sure no one else was in prison who shouldn't be. Patricia Washington Reynolds went back to Washington, D.C. eventually, but she came home much more often. Her experience with James had changed her. She started working on reforms to the justice system, especially for young people. And James decided what he wanted to do with his life. The whole experience had shown him how important good lawyers were, how they could change people's lives. He would study hard, go to college, and then to law school. Maybe someday he would help someone else who needed a second chance, just like he had gotten. One evening, as he sat on the porch with his mother during one of her visits home, James said, "You know, in a weird way, I'm almost glad this happened." "Why is that?" she asked. "Because it brought us closer together," he said, "and it showed me what I want to do with my life." Patricia smiled at her son. "Sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best changes," she said. They sat together watching the sunset, a mother and son who had been through a terrible time but had come out stronger. Their story had already helped change things for other young people in the system, and it was just the beginning.